Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Alex Thomas Show. Apologize for the delay, but as always, I am super excited, and not as always, even a little bit more, because I think every show is special, but we have something new tonight, and the new factor and what I've added in is I'm going to start doing 10 minutes of some type of local journalism. That was one of the impetuses and one of the reasons for the Alex Thomas Show, this show, and for the guests to come on is because we have such a void in local media. And we have so many important issues that with the way they're talked about in the national media, I mean, we're already not getting an honest discussion or not getting more informed. But when you think about that and then think of not having any local media, you can understand why we need 10 minutes of information about what's going on in Eastern Washtenaw County, Ypsilanti, countywide. And I asked, I can probably say, some socialist friends of mine to help me out because we're about an hour late today because I had a really busy schedule working in the community. But my socialist friends, I'm glad to say, helped me out, and they gave me some great tidbits of information that you all should know about. I posted links to all the information that I'm going to read to you right now, and I hope you check them out because they're all important. I'm just going to get started right here. The news in Ypsilanti this week that you need to know. Ypsi Arbor Civic Update, December 15th. Well, actually 14th, but, we're great. Tomorrow, on Saturday, December 15th at 7 p.m. here at the Riverside Arts Center, we have a Solidarity in Defense Huron Valley is hosting an event called, and this is very important, and I was so excited to hear about it when I first read it. The event that we're going to have here tomorrow at the Riverside Arts Center, 76 North Huron, is called Care Not Cops, a community conversation. This event looks to be a dialogue engaging questions such as, how could we address harm without police? How are we already resolving conflict without police? What tangible examples can you share from your own life? So can you see the importance of this? So I hope that rings to you and you come down here tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we'll kick off with a brief slideshow as inspiration for all of us to dialogue together about how we can better take care of each other while simultaneously moving forward to a world without police. Community building and prefigurative conversation are the actions of this event, slated to be 2 hours, and snacks will be provided. They got food, y'all. The Riverside Arts Center, we're here at the 76 North Huron, and the event will be taking place in the Off Center. So if you're familiar with the Riverside Arts Center, it's not the theater entrance, it's the other more southern entrance at 76 North Huron, the Off Center. And it's a big open room with tables at the ground level. For more information about the Solidarity in Defense, you can go to the link that I have posted at the Alex Thomas Show in the event section. And you can also go to their page directly too. And that page is the Solidarity in Defense Huron Valley on Facebook. Next, have the Ypsilanti Subcommittee for Housing Affordability and Accessibility is working to understand the complexity and emergent needs, opportunities in housing like the everyday Ypsilantian. This is a survey, so this is very important. There's a survey, and those of you in the activist community, when we do go out and we're at government functions or government events, especially on policy, in which they say that there was a public comment section, or they gave an extended period of time for the public to give information. But we know we don't really get a healthy turnout because people are busy working and caught up in their days and they have children. So opportunities like this, we really need to take advantage of. And this is a housing survey. And the survey you can take online at Housing Survey City of Ypsilanti. Folks from the subcommittee like Desiree Simmons and Human Relations Commissioner Amber Fellows have put paper versions around town in various locations. If you see those, fill them out and put the completed surveys in the blue box. So if you see the blue boxes around town, please fill out the paper version of the survey. But you can find the online survey. You can find the online survey at the Alex Thomas Talk Show and also at tinyurl.com /Ipsy Housing Survey. But just go to the Alex Thomas Show and and hit the share button or the share button and click, please. And our next story, and boy, this really, members of the Ann Arbor Light Brigade stood outside. Yeah, this really did make me very angry. I thought I saw light and got misdirected. This was given to me yesterday, so I'll update right after. I'm just going to read straight through. Members of the Ann Arbor Light Brigade stood outside the home of current Michigan Governor Rick Snyder this past December 10th, singing carols about the lame duck bills awaiting the Snyder's pen. These bills include measures that would limit the power of the incoming governor and attorney general. Other measures would undo the voters' will on increasing the minimum wage and paid sick time. One bill already signed this week by Snyder will have the much disputed Enbridge Line 5 project tunnel built. Carolers lit signs and spelled out "No Line 5 Tunnel" and "Veto Lame Ducks" outside of Governor Snyder's home. For more info on how to respond to lame duck legislation, go to Michigan Lame Duck Action and Washtenaw Speaks Up on Facebook. And I was having a little trouble finding that link. If you please go attempt, because it's such important. That's just outrageous. If you probably know, if you're watching this show, that he did sign the bills. So our governor did subvert the will of the people and just through this lame duck session signed the ridiculous bills that the Republicans put forth and have a straight face. I don't understand how you can call yourself a representative in a democracy and just do that. Gut what had such a groundswell and such a high amount of support, and what was clearly what the people wanted, and they cut it. So please go to Michigan Lame Duck Action and Washtenaw Speaks Up on Facebook. And if you have a problem, I'm sure some other people did, and type it in here in the comments section and explain exactly how to get to that, because we do need to speak up, and you can't let democracy get taken away without saying something. Last story. Second to the last, the Huron River Watershed Council, Washtenaw County Health Department, and the City of Ann Arbor are inviting the public to learn more about PFAS and the health of the Huron River at a community event which will take place 7 to 9 p.m. Tuesday, December 18th at Washtenaw County's College Towsley Auditorium. Washtenaw Community College's Towsley Auditorium. So it's very important, because I know we have many people, rightfully so, concerned about our environment and our city treasure, the Huron River, and the importance, or find out what are the effects of PFAS. So again, because it is such an important issue, at Washtenaw Community College's Towsley Auditorium on December 18th, which is a Tuesday, from 7 to 9 p.m. And I'll make sure I get that link up there. The auditorium is located in the Morris J. Lawrence building at 4800 East Huron River Drive. The meeting is free and open to the public. Again, so go and you can find out exactly about what's going on with PFAS and the current situation. On Sunday of this week, come and join the Huron Valley Democratic Socialists at the Canterbury House from 2 to 4 p.m. for their December general meeting. Again, so that's at this Sunday, December 16th, the Huron Valley Democratic Socialists. They're going to have their December meeting from 2 to 4 p.m. At the Canterbury House. There'll be free food, and anyone is welcome to attend. The agenda, announcements and reports. There's a steering committee and elections. And then there's thirdly on the agenda, where are we now? A continuation of a chapter-wide campaign discussion. There's a ramp on the side of the building, and the bathroom is single occupancy and gender neutral. So that's the Huron Valley Democratic Socialists, Canterbury House, 2 to 4 on Sunday. Show up, they got food. And for the ramp is on the side of the building, and the bathroom is single occupancy and gender neutral. And boy, that's a lot of fun doing that. And I hope you take advantage of the information, all of it. That housing survey is incredibly important, all the information. I can't wait to come here tomorrow night, for the conversation dealing with the police and how we can reduce harm. But you can check all that out in the links we're going to get to my guest. And I always say I'm super excited, and because I am. This is such a fun part of the day when you're really busy. And I'm really proud of the guest that I have tonight. And you can see in the listing, I said that she was an activist, an advocate, and I'm lucky to call her a good friend of mine. But it's going to be an interesting show, and I'm going to, without further ado, let you meet Karen Wanza. Come on in, Karen. Okay.
Hi.
So I introduced you as a local activist, advocate, and a good friend of mine. Which of those are you most comfortable with? I'm sure you like it all. Are they all accurate?
Friend.
Okay.
Advocate.
Advocate. You know, each other like that. Like when people ask me, I don't want to say. I feel like I should do more activities before I call myself an activist.
Yeah, in New York, I was definitely an activist. I don't know how I got out of law school. It was like we would come up. That shows how old I am. It was during the Reagan administration.
Okay.
So we would have like these very. He was always doing something horrible. We had like maybe 24 hours to get like mass mobilization.
This is going to be a lot of fun, but I got to tell people why they should care.
Yeah.
Karen is an attorney. She got her law degree from New York University. Was it bachelor's in sociology from Amherst?
It's Hampshire College in Amherst, Massachusetts, and you come up with your own major. So what I did was we had a major, and I looked at the impact of slavery on African Americans and also in the diaspora, which at the time people thought I was crazy using the term diaspora for Black people because it's always was used as Jews.
Right. Can you explain the term? Hey, can you correct me? Let me show off a little bit. The diaspora, meaning all the people of African ancestry in current times that
like
are spread out.
Diaspora, it's like people dispersed. So
you did it better. I should have let you the first time.
So what happens is, we all had this mother country, and if you look at the cultures within, a lot of people don't realize that we have a lot more in common with, say, somebody in Brazil than maybe with President Trump.
Well,
and a lot of it is like cultural. You go to these places and you're like, oh, they dance the same way. They may speak a different language, but there's things you can pretty much.
Well, from my time, what's guaranteed is the shared experience.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, what you can make these weird assumptions that you can't make even like here in the United States, like if you go to Cuba.
But why else they should care? Because of your law degree, that background that's so interesting already. But then she has a history of work with the United Nations that we're going to go into. She's been involved in lots of election work quite recently also, but a real interesting career that I hope you stay tuned and see why I was so excited to have her on the show. So I know exactly where, but I kind of cut you off there, so I'll give you, go ahead, continue, or I can jump.
Oh, I was just talking about the work I did as an undergrad. I was looking at
the diaspora.
Yeah, so it involved doing a lot of research that was not just in the library, but going out. And I went to Jamaica and I lived there. I went to Cuba like 3 times, and like one time it was with a graduate program. And
this is early 70s. I'm thinking
late
70s. Mid 80s, right?
Late 70s.
Boy, if I would have said anything else, you might have kicked me. But go ahead.
Well,
I want it for the audience.
To some of your audience, I guess 70s, 80s, it didn't matter.
In relation to Cuba and such, and get an idea, because we have a very informed audience that, they're trying to get a picture of those, because it means a little different in the time scale. But anyway, Cuba and... Go ahead.
In Jamaica. Well, I was in Jamaica in 1980 when I know who your audience is, so I can say this.
Yeah, go.
The United States was trying to undermine Michael Manley. and it was this whole.
I can't believe you even hesitated with that. Yeah,
when you're in law, you have to be very.
Oh, okay. No, I mean I want people to tune in for the unabashedly.
Yeah.
For the lefty voice.
We all know that this happened. If you write it down.
But okay, I'm gonna go back. So Michael Manley
was a Democratic Socialist prime minister in Jamaica. I think the first time he was like that in the early 70s. It kind of prompted other people to do different kinds of revolutions, like the short-lived revolution in Grenada.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I found out, I was really surprised as I learned more about Jamaica. There's a long history of a European, long history and tradition of white Europeans that are hardcore Jamaican and that have been disproportionately run the government and still in positions of power are mixed. Or clean it up for me. Give me that, because I didn't know. I met some whites from Jamaica.
They're all really. It's funny, like if you talk about like when they first got to be free, supposedly independent, but even before that, when they had a prime minister named Bustamante, he looked white, but he was the uncle, I think, of Michael Manley. They're all related.
Well,
Eddie Seaga, I would say, was probably white. But I mean, what does white mean in Jamaica? It means something different than it does here.
But the only reason that I bring it up, though, because I think the one of the largest, and I met a good friend that informed me about some of the misconceptions about Jamaica. Like they had one of the highest percentages of Christian churches for what that means.
Oh, yeah.
in Jamaica.
Different kinds, though.
Right.
Like there's the Salvationists, there's a lot of evangelicals that we don't have here. Really.
But I mean, I don't think people, because still, people immediately associate the Rastafarian, which is only
a very, very small part.
Right, and that's and that's why I put that out there. And then also a very, very small part, the Rastafarian. Part of Jamaican culture. And then would I be correct in, you can probably, like you mentioned Bustamante, but it seems like the wealth is concentrated in proportion to the least amount of melanin in your skin.
Then there was
well, please, I'll be specific for me.
It's kind of a mix. It's kind of a mix because there was God, I can't think of his name. Hugh, whatever his last name was.
I just invite the audience to look at Jamaican history and then look at the history of the European population and also just
at least during the time he was in office, he was trying to develop a more nationalist, and I don't mean nationalist as more of a sense of one people, that kind of thing. Like believe in Jamaica. Don't just believe in getting out of Jamaica or having a place in Miami and just dumping on Jamaica. So
and this is Bustamante.
No, this
is Michael Manley.
This was Michael Manley. And so I mean, even the money changed when he was in power. Like you'd get a $5 note or a $10 note, and it would have like on the back the bauxite industry. And bauxite, you use it to make aluminum.
Okay. The bauxite industry.
Yeah, so they'd have a picture of that, or they'd have like their national heroes, and like probably you haven't heard of some of them, like Granny Nanny of the Maroons. They were really proud of the Maroon societies, the people that ran away from slavery.
Define Maroon.
They're people. I was trying to say.
Okay.
People who ran away from slavery, lived in the mountains, formed their own communities, and tried to help liberate other slaves. So there's one named Granny Nanny of the Maroons, and she was an older woman who helped many people, go, and they lived in the hills. So that was one of them.
I had a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting you before, but what I did, because when I heard Maroon, and and what's correctly considered offensive language now, but I would hear quadroon and that describing it, and that there's that term which is offensive, but it's educational to the audience. With a quadroon would be someone of a certain percentage of mixed ancestry and things black. And it was
maroon is like being marooned on a ship,
right?
Maroon, not like
that's
maroon.
Yeah, so that's why I interrupted and wanted to get the definition, but cool.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting. So freed slaves that developed their own society or that run away or that
Well,
escaped?
people don't know that, but that happened here too in the
Mhm.
United States. That's how I have an African last name. People always think I made up my name because if I sign it KWAUZA, it's like the holiday.
Right.
I've been around longer than that.
But I want you to finish. If I go ahead and finish up with that in Jamaica, and then know the examples in the United States.
Oh, okay, so they're national heroes. They God, I'm trying to think of them all now. There was the Nanny of the Maroons. There's God, I can't. I'm
That's
rough
okay.
up with
That's
names.
people.
You know how you can see a face and you can't think of the name.
Absolutely, but
Okay, you'll know who it is. He started the Universal Negro Improvement Association.
Marcus Garvey.
Marcus Garvey.
Thank you. I'm glad you have faith in me.
He's one of the national heroes, one of their national heroes.
Yeah.
So, it's people like that. And it gives you more of a sense that, and they were also more intra-Caribbean, their relationships, which got them in trouble because they started being very friendly with Cuba, and Cuba, they didn't really have anything other than real friendship. There wasn't a whole lot of I don't remember if they really gave a whole lot of money.
But this is the Nixon administration. Oh no, you said this is Reagan. As you said though. So no bigger, no bigger anti-communist.
Yeah. That's
Trump.
what happened with
caught in the Cold War.
That's why we invaded Grenada, because Cuba was exporting revolution. That's the kind of things that people need to remember, even if you're younger. You need to know where we've been to know why we are going the way we are going.
And understand the effect of American government corporate policy in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Jamaica,
why it ends up coming back on us.
Jamaica, Haiti also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Okay, please look into that because I want to.
Yeah.
But some of when you said some of the because when you mentioned some of the African American communities that were founded by free slaves in the United States, I thought of, and I wanted to check with you and see. I know some communities in Florida, and also in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But when you said your last name too, I mean, in my mind I pictured that those were second or third generation, so that's super interesting. So go ahead.
Well, there was my family, at least on my father's side. My mother's side is totally different.
Okay, but Mr. Wanza, where was he born? Where was he born at, Mr.
Florida.
Wanza? In Florida. Okay.
Yeah. And he lived with his mother. They moved to Connecticut. I don't even know.
Was this the city that was? Did he live in a city that was one of the African American communities?
It wasn't a city. Okay. I mean, I've never been there. My mother went there, and she was telling me, they were mixed with the Seminole Indians. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much of this is true. I mean, this is all family folklore, but my mother said, I got really worried because there were scalps on his aunt's porch.
Oh, okay.
So, it's like, really?
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. I mean,
you never know.
I know there's some hellified people.
But, so he was born there, and then
they moved to Connecticut, and my grandmother lived there, and his father is his father's the Wanza. So his father had to be mixed. His father was very fair and very almost Asian features, that Native Americans have. Right. But he was I shouldn't say, not a nice guy. But you could understand why, because these are people who spent generation after generation trying to hold on to their land, trying to hold on to their ways of life, identity. They were very educated. It's interesting.
And that what made me, and I couldn't name the names of the communities, but I knew Florida and Oklahoma. But if my memory serves right, that they were destroyed in race riots, and once they got much power.
Some of them I just think got usurped by people speculating land, because most of this was around the swamp area, because it was a time when when people were first running out of slavery, that was the one place white people didn't want to go. There's a lot of malaria, so.
And the swamp. There was a movie with Vin Rames that people can look at IMDb, but it was obviously Hollywood fictionalized, and he was the hero character in real life. I know there was no hero and the town was destroyed. So it's factually based. If you looked up the guy that played Marcellus Wallace in Pulp Fiction, Vin Rames, there was that movie, and it's based on a true story, but his character is the Hollywood factor. But I want to hop to law school, or right after law school, or the beginning of what you say is your advocacy career.
Well, I kind of started in college because I was originally going to be pre-med. So I took all these science courses and I transferred from this all-women Catholic college to Hampshire College. And it was like, oh, freedom! I went to school. I mean, they were like this all through the 90s. I mean, they finally became co-ed, but if you had a boyfriend, you had to stay out of your room. Or if he was in the room, you had to have the door open. And there's that kind of crazy stuff. So I went to Amherst. That's where Hampshire College is. And, I'd always been ranting around like I wanted academic freedom. And it's just like, wow, I can do anything.
Wow.
So I started doing more social science and literature. And I still did science, but I decided to go to law school because I just had a sense that was how you could make some changes. Okay. So,
well, I'm thinking when you say all girls Catholics high school, all girls Catholic college, but they're in the Northeast. I mean, it's restrictive anywhere, but to be in such an area where there's some diverse thought and good things going on.
It didn't reach down.
Yeah, it didn't.
I'm still thinking of conversations I heard there that I wish I could forget. Like one time I remember I heard this woman, I won't say her name, but she was talking about wanting a yearly because the college was in New Haven. And she was using, I was so shocked that even in front of me, she would say, oh, this chinklet. I was like, saying what?
Whoa.
They really, were like from Archie. I didn't know Archie Bunker really existed till I met some of these people. Because we had one person who was Vietnamese and they wouldn't eat anything she could because they thought it was weird. And it was just.
Okay, so a snapshot of that. So law school, advocacy, and like, what was the first project, or if you remember, or did you go to administration?
First thing I did was they came and they wanted people that were. I was a Root Tilden scholar, and that's a public interest scholarship that they give to like 20 people or so out of like all their applicants, and really basically there's 20 out of the class of 400 or something.
Yeah, I had to pull her CV out of her, and so that was one of the, I think it was, like out of 200.
Out of 400. But yeah, it's like a class of like 400.
The Root Tilden Scholarship. Okay, and what did you do in that role, or what?
Well, the first thing I did was people came from I don't know if people are familiar with the Center for Constitutional Rights. Center for Constitutional Rights did a lot of advocacy and litigation that most people would have been like, are you crazy? Like, they sued the Ku Klux Klan in Chattanooga. And so my first year of law school, they said, okay, this is what we want you to do. Find out how we serve them. It's like, how are you going to serve people you don't know who they are? So I did all this research and I found out you serve the Attorney General of if it's an unincorporated association.
An unincorporated association, you serve the Attorney General of the state.
So that's how they got this ball rolling, and they did sue the Klan, and there's a book about it.
Now, what was the case? So, I mean, and not the title, but what was the grounds for the lawsuit?
There had been a lot of violence, and
someone got shot. Like, I remember. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want to make sure it was the right one.
Yeah, it was. I guess the things that had happened like prior to the lawsuit, like maybe like in the late 70s or something, but it was still ongoing. People were being, what's the word I want? Victimized, or not. I don't like using that term. People were being raided. I mean, you just didn't know who was safe.
I believe in the incident that I'm thinking of, I think it was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. There was a Klan rally that broke out in violence, and the Klan supporters or the members of the Klan just pulled rifles out and were aiming and started shooting and killing people.
Yeah, that's one of the.
That was one of the. Yeah, there's some video of that.
There's a lot.
I mean, like they're actually like hunting and shooting people in the back. I mean, it's really
it's awful. Yeah,
but. What was the effect of that?
I'm trying to remember. I think they got damages. The whole point to me, though, was that somebody would even try to sue an unincorporated association, a terror group, because the FBI wasn't doing anything about it, and there weren't like local people saying, "Well, let's get these terrorists off the street." You're a terrorist if you're a Muslim, or if you're black or something. You're a terrorist if you kill somebody. If you're white and you're Dylan Roof, you're just a lone wolf crazy person. So.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure on that. I mean, if you look at, I'm definite, but if you look at the number of domestic terror incidents in the last 10 years, I mean, the ones done by white supremacists or far right-wing groups far outnumber ridiculously.
And if we go back and look at even the so-called pro-life groups, they've done a lot more. I mean, they've bombed clinics, they've killed doctors, and they still are very strong, because they get respectability somehow. So, what Neil Gorsuch gets pushed right through.
And that's really big, because I'm going to go to that afterwards, but I think I wanted to point out one of the many countless terrible things of the Trump administration is how they're diverting resources from investigating groups like that, white supremacist groups that are, by empirical evidence, responsible for so much of the violence. And it just shows the hypocrisy and the blatant racist attitude.
That's why you need to know your history, because it's like now I sit down and say, okay, so what happened again during Watergate? What happened with the break-in? Because that was a blatantly criminal administration. The difference between the difference between a Nixon and a Trump is that the party wasn't as crazy as they are now. I mean, now they'll win at any cost. But back then, people actually had sense of morality. It's like, we can call out our own person if he's nuts enough. You just don't see that right now. And that's where we need a playbook. Like, how are we going to deal with Mitch McConnell?
Yes. But we could go so much. But I really definitely wanted to get in, because we spoke earlier about the recent Supreme Court decision and the misunderstanding with the recent Supreme Court decision concerning abortion and federal funding and Planned Parenthood. So I'm going to be quiet, and this is the great part of having a guest like you. You can tell. I mean, and please, if you could give the audience just an update on what happened and the misperception.
I guess the big thing everybody's happy about with this new decision that allowed people on Medicare and Medicaid to still get their services at the Planned Parenthood clinics. It's good because it does keep Planned Parenthood alive. I mean, they will get some funding, but the thing people are forgetting is that it means you still can't get an abortion if you're on Medicare or Medicaid. So, and that would extend to certain kinds of Obamacare that have any kind of federal funding. So you're going to be racking up a serious bill if you want to have to pay yourself. If you have to pay yourself for the abortion. And that's the Hyde Amendment, like we were talking about. So
the Hyde Amendment. Are we about to say that?
You can say.
No, you said it. You said, I don't know. My time is. Go ahead. Well, the Hyde Amendment is named after Representative Henry Hyde. That what it does is restrict any federal funding for abortion. Period. Right.
Period. Even if your life's in danger. So you.
Right. So go ahead and.
So it to me wasn't that hard for the Supreme Court and Gorsuch to say, oh yeah, okay, that's all right. We'll let you get your STD test and your breast exams at Planned Parenthood, because a lot of you aren't going to be able to go to another clinic because not everybody takes Medicaid, not everybody takes Medicare.
Mhm.
So it makes sense that they would do that. It's just I don't understand why people are making it sound like it's this big revolutionary thing that this guy broke out of his conservatism. It's exactly the same conservatism. I've read Clarence Thomas once talked about marijuana plantations just because he believed in states' rights.
Mhm.
But if you believe in states' rights, then all of a sudden you don't have a right if the state's doing something you don't like California.
Right,
what happened
right.
to the 10th Amendment there?
Yeah, absolutely. But you threw me. I wanted to. Well, the 10th Amendment restricting all powers not specifically granted to the federal government are left to the states. I wanted to get that right. They're trying to maintain. I want to know with the abortion issue. I mean, in our previous conversations, you brought to light a perspective that I think that it seems like the so-called pro-life or controlling the discussion around it. And what really should be talked about is the more access and the lack of access in general, like in rural areas, and with the success of the far right and how that into our 2 Corinthians. Donald Trump when he saw the 2 Corinthians. I mean how that power of that far right Christian right wing translates into the Trump administration and the effect of restricting abortion access.
Yeah, that these are the same people who say, well, one life, Khashoggi, that doesn't matter. We're talking billions of money. Wait a second.
Yeah.
What was that? I was one of the big ministers. God,
I don't know.
I can't remember. I heard him say it, and I was like, oh my God, you were like Mr. Life is Sacred.
Probably Billy Graham's son or whatever.
No, not his son. It was oh God, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just so blatantly insincere. I mean, if you sincerely believe in the life of everyone, then you wouldn't be for you'd be for gun control. You would be for getting rid of the death penalty. These things you would be against. People getting shot in the street, street court.
I saw at Liberty University there was a panel, and I believe it was like Franklin Graham was there. His name, but what made me so angry, they were comparing the so-called pro-life struggle to the abolitionist movement.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah. Well, they're the direct descendants of the people that were mad as hell. And the abolitionists. I mean, they're the direct descendants that tried to co-opt that history.
I've been seeing a lot of people are doing that, though.
Yeah, but it's so ridiculous. They're in Liberty, South Carolina.
Yeah. And if you don't know your history, you'll just sit there and, oh, yeah, maybe, but.
So we were in your first case was suing the Ku Klux Klan. It's about involved with identifying and serving, finding out who to sue.
And then after that, I was studying a lot, and I was doing a lot of organizing with, I don't know, people may not know I don't even know if they exist anymore. They probably do, the Vincent Ramos Brigade. They were.
You got me. This is interesting.
Vincent means we will overcome. Vincent Ramos.
Vincent Ramos in Spanish?
Yeah.
Okay.
It means we will win, we will overcome.
Okay.
And what they used to do.
Are you a fluent Spanish speaker or kind of sort of?
I can speak some Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to speak it better when I'm around Spanish-speaking people, which was why it was great to be in Florida, because you'd be in a Uber or something, and you'd just be speaking, and you're like, wow, that's what I'm missing in Michigan.
Well, I wanted to get the correct pronunciation and not just throw it off because I didn't. But can you?
Spencer Ramos.
Okay, you said it right the first time.
Yeah. I mean, you'll see it on some signs, but the ones that say the neighborhoods are, they have it in like 3 or 4 languages. We support right around here.
Okay.
We support solidarity and stuff with people of color, whatever.
Okay.
But they use the term venceremos, but I don't understand why they used it because it doesn't mean together. It means coming and overcoming. So I don't know.
Okay.
Unless my Spanish is way off. And I talked to somebody who was Spanish speaking, and they said, yeah, I don't know why they use venceremos either, but maybe because it's a quick way to put something on a sign.
Okay. Save Spain. But what did you do with them in that group?
I really just worked with a lot of the people that had done the brigade. I worked with people mainly when I went to Cuba. I didn't go the way the brigade people did. It was an act of solidarity with Cuba. They would break the blockade. I mean, it was illegal to go to Cuba.
Oh, okay.
And so you either had to go through Canada or Mexico, and they would come and help with the sugar harvest in Cuba.
Oh, okay.
And they'd stay like a couple of months.
So it was the political statement of breaking the blockade,
yeah,
and then also the cultural experience and learning and everything.
I did more of the cultural, and it was interesting. The first time I went, it was
it's late 80s, early 90s.
It was 80s. It was 78.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had been invited to be in this class that was really for people that were in graduate school, and I was just like a sophomore.
Okay.
So there were all these people in the class, and it was called the African Base of Cuban Culture, and it was taught by a name you might know, Janetta Cole. She was president of Spelman. She was president of this other school, Bennett College, all historically black colleges. Mm-hmm. And now she's at the African American Museum in D.C. And she taught at UMass in Amherst. And, we had a 5-college exchange, so I took courses at UMass, at Amherst College, at Smith College, at Mount Holyoke. So it was really nice because there aren't a whole lot of blacks in those different schools. So you got to meet the cream of the crop all over the place. Mm-hmm. And one of the fun things I did when I was there, we had dinner with Rosa Parks and Yolanda King. So it's like things that you'll always remember because it just doesn't happen every day, and they had James Balwin there all the time. And
I never asked you for pictures. Like, I gotta go through your album. I didn't know. Okay, wow, that is.
Yeah, Archie Shep was at UMass, and
did you get the chat with James Baldwin? And
yeah. I never realized how big a person he was because he was friends with some of these professors, and they would call him Jimmy Baldwin. I'm like, who's Jimmy?
Wow. And then
this guy's not just known in the black community, he's known.
Oh, yeah. And I hope that's named James Baldwin isn't new to some people in the audience. But if I love there's so much, his work, but if you hadn't heard and to draw interest, I thought of his speaking at Oxford. There's a great debate on YouTube, and I'm hesitating and stuff because it's just such a rich body of literature. Yeah. And I'm talking about a YouTube clip with James Balwin. But I want to give some insight to some people that might not recognize.
All right, if you're at all putting people in a history, it's interesting. When I finally read Giovanni's Room, which is about his gay experience in Italy and all through Europe, I was like, my God, this guy wrote this way before Stonewall, way before anybody would even think of saying they were gay.
Could you give a brief bio for James Baldwin, or just for people that hadn't heard? Because I gave the YouTube clip mentioned.
Oh, okay. Well, he's like probably, I would say, one of his generation's like best writers. you read him and you're like, oh my God, he wrote this before I was born. But it's so on tape. You read it and you're like, this guy was a genius. And it's no wonder he felt like torture because he loved the United States. He loved African Americans. But he felt like, there's just too many disconnects. Like his father was a minister. And he was very, very strict. And, he's like knowing who he really is, but trying to be, cool with the girls, trying to notice, what's going on. And
in the closet, it should have to be in the South.
Well, at least with it. No, this wasn't in
Chicago?
No, he was born in Harlem.
Okay.
So, if you read some of his books, he talks about, escaping and going to, different movies, because, I guess his parents were like so whack that they couldn't even go to the movies. So, just escaping and learning more about, things in general. Like to him, it was like moving to another country to move to Greenwich Village. So, and then you read about that and you're like, oh my God, that's the same too. He talks about his experiences with liberal whites. And like when you start drawing the line, when you start realizing that no matter how well-intentioned people are, they absorb racism, they grew up around it. And, unless they're open to finding out what it is about them that is racist, they'll just, like they do now, say, I'm not a racist. How dare you call me a racist?
I wish I could name some of the books, and I wish I had time to prepare.
If Beale Street could talk, Giovanni's Room.
But I was going to ask you, because there's some rich writing just describing the brutality of racism and what it does to the psyche and such, and he's so artistic. And of the books he names, it's just his work he does so well.
Yeah.
I couldn't name it.
But there's people in other countries too who work like that. Like, what is his name? God, what is wrong with me? The Black Skin, White Mass.
Black Skin, White Mess? Mask.
Black Skins, White Mask. What is his name?
Like a mask on your face.
He's a French African person. He was from a French country. I think it's Senegal he's from. Not Aimé Césaire. Aimé Césaire wrote a different thing. He wrote something called
so Aimé Césaire is one that's
you might want to read.
But we also want to find the author of Black Skin, White Mask.
Everybody always Frantz Fanon. That's his name. Fanon. Frantz Fanon. I'm so used to talking to people who fill in the blanks. You're talking about Frantz Fanon. That's old stuff. We know that, but not everybody's read it, and it's relevant still, and it's.
Well, if I'm right, you're drawing. I mean, you put those authors up as comparisons to James Balwin in the American tradition. So wow, that's definitely.
They kind of played off each other. I mean, a lot of the African writers were influenced by what was happening here, but we were kind of influenced by, like the Mau Mau movement or
the Mau Mau in the Mau Mau in the Congo, in Kenya.
Yeah,
and the Mau Mau was the group that was overthrowing the colonials.
Yeah, like them, like trying to think. The Algiers problems, the war in Algiers. In Algeria.
Just the struggle around the world.
Around colonialism. But we were colonized too, even though like Michael Malcolm X said, Plymouth Rock landed on us, but it's a little different too because we were colonized. I mean, and we still are in a lot of ways because to make people feel like they don't have access to, quality education, or when they do get it, they're still not as good as the average white person. Even South Africa got their ideas from us.
Yeah, but I think a big part of so many race discussions that I think is a huge part that doesn't take place because it's rare that people talk about race and then when they do that you have an adult reasoned conversation. But if that did happen more, just the stripping of identity, that's the unique of the African experience in America. I mean, slavery exists so so long in
Yeah.
human history.
Yeah.
But the unique experience of being taken from one area to another continent
Yeah.
and being stripped of your whole culture
your
and what that
name,
means
you
to
don't
people.
even have your name.
Yeah.
That's
And how that translates. And I think, I mean, I wish there was more discussion because it's so, but just to put in the consciousness, I mean, I saw a stat about what a small percentage of African Americans or Africans directly from Africans and Americans directly from Africa that are Nigerian, but about 25% of the blacks going to Harvard are from Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I think that shows something about the importance of culture,
the
identity, and
importance
tradition.
of an identity.
Yeah.
The importance of seeing people who are your neighbors, your own people, in power. I mean, that's what made me feel good in Jamaica. I was like, wow, I can't imagine living like this where your professors are black. I mean, there's white people there, like you said, but you're the majority. They're the minority. It's a different experience. Even in Cuba, where they're about, depending what you call black, I'd say they're like 66% black. It's a very different experience. And like it or not, whether you like Fidel or not, one thing he did was he defined Cuba as an Afro-Latin nation. And he's probably the only Spanish-speaking country that will admit there even ever was anything to do with slavery.
I love how he stayed in Harlem every time he came to the United Nations. That was great.
What I love now is that I remember thinking, well, this guy was so old. Why did he get so bitter that when Obama came to Cuba and started trying to open things up, the first thing he said was, well, it'll change with the president. Nothing lasts in the United States. They'll be your friend today, and tomorrow it's bullshit. And I was like, oh, come on now. It's not going to change. What happened? Exactly the same thing he said would happen.
And did immigration totally get stopped, or it was restricted in such that you had to be part of a group, or is it okay? Can I go to Cuba?
You can still go to Cuba.
Right, but I have to be part of a group.
Yeah,
right?
but you don't have to be part of a group. I'm not sure what's happening now because Trump was trying to change how you could go to Cuba. What were the reasons? But I'm pretty sure you can. I mean, you can still now. You can say JetBlue. But it's whatever. I was at the airport in Fort Lauderdale, and it was funny. The people that JetBlue was sending to Cuba was taken to Cuba. They had them in like this little corral area. It's like, what the hell? So I guess they were kind of going through your papers or something. I don't know. I didn't stick around long enough to find out. But
when you mentioned some of the great things about Fidel Castro. Just when I say that, great things about it, you can hear the audience screaming out with valid reasons, with valid concerns about people being killed and just in the discussion.
The whole thing with gays and that kind of thing.
Right.
Not a wonderful place.
Well, I'm going right, but I didn't know. I didn't know someone specifically targeted, but I can imagine in that. But I think if you're going to bring that up, then you have to look at it in the whole context of global, and you have to bring up American policy in Southeast Asia, millions of people,
or American policy. What happened? Why Cuba had to be the way they were. I mean, it was the playground of the mafia for a long time, and
I was as far as making a moral judgment about Fidel Castro, you have to hold Richard Nixon and Johnson under the same lens. But the history
for somebody who probably most of his blood he would trace back to Spain, had a very good sense of like what it was like to be a person of color in a country like Cuba, where I mean, that's another one that people don't realize. It was a lot like apartheid. It wasn't like here where you were either black or white. They had black, white, and colored. And they would talk about how, you could go to a park and maybe the father belonged with the white part and the mother was supposed to be black and the child would be like, and it's funny because I used to hear those stories all the time. And then you read Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, and he's talking about the same experience with how he couldn't go to the park with his real father, and his mother kind of had to act like she was kind of taking care of him for somebody else. And I was like, oh my God, that's where they got that from.
We have about 5 more minutes. And and boy, there was so much that because I'm going to give you some more time, so we'll go even about 10 more minutes. I want to give you time, but
you can edit it out.
But with I'm just thinking about colonialism, the Caribbean, Cuba. So it's been a long day, but just Cuban Revolution, 1959?
59. January 1st.
Prior to, though, like you were saying, that it was a playground for the mafia. Just incredible corruption, but as far as wealth gap,
we want the treatment of women. I mean, that's something people may not know about, but that one of the things they really tried to correct, even though they're like the machismo capital of the world, a lot of Spanish-speaking countries, was the way women were treated. And so they came up in, I guess that was 1975 or 77, but this thing called the Family Code. And it really put forth that women shouldn't have to work 2 shifts. You know, you shouldn't have to go to work, come home, and then do all the other work. You know, like you shouldn't have to be just the person raising the kids, the person cleaning the house, cooking all the meals. Way before women in this country thought about, you know, like at the time women were saying they could do it all. In this country, people down there were saying, hell no, we don't want to do it all.
Wow.
You know? So they were trying to figure out how you can make men feel like that's part of their duty, part of their job. And so it was a really interesting piece of legislation.
How did I mean? Obviously, interesting and forward thinking. How did it translate out into really getting ingrained into the how successful do you think? I mean, it's admirable.
It's translated better than say anything. Like we can't even get an equal rights amendment.
Yeah.
So I would say it's not 100% effective, and you can't legislate people's minds. You can only try to show them from the way other people act, and just show them that the norm is not going to be this way anymore. Just like, you know, in this country, we have to say, no, we're not going to let you, you know, talk about Mexicans as rapists or as drug dealers, or, you know, all Muslims are
or asylum seekers and invaders.
Asylum.
We have to control the.
We have to tell people we aren't going for that narrative. You know, it's not acceptable. This is not 1959. So change yourself or leave. You know, they always said it to us: love it or leave it. You leave it.
Well, it is going to be about 5 minutes left because we really didn't even talk about local.
I know. We didn't talk about local. We didn't talk about my legal stuff. We didn't talk about Fort Lauderdale.
Well, all of those things, you know, and I'll extend, you know, but I give some time to the place. But you named a few things, so definitely 10 more minutes or whatever you want to talk about of those things.
Okay.
I'll let you lead. What do you think Ypsilanti and Washington County needs to know about?
That you're not alone with your vote being, on the one hand, you know, you have a vote. We had record turnouts in this country for the midterm, and yet, you know, the powers that be, power concedes nothing without a demand. And that's the thing. People, you know, they're doing the lame duck stuff. Or when I went to Florida and I was helping with the recount, there was just such BS stuff like, you can't touch the ballots. You know, we had a Republican lawyer and a Democrat lawyer at every table.
And this was just this past November election. When you were in Florida.
And they would touch the people who worked for the county. I was in Broward County, which is where Parkland is, and where places like Coral Springs, and you know, it's pretty affluent, but there's like parts of it that are like people just get pushed into one poor area because there's not a lot of activism there. And it's like, okay, I got mine, you get yours.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is they did pass an initiative to help provide housing help for people who were falling in between the cracks and couldn't afford to live in any decent areas. So I was surprised at that. But it turned out where I was doing this recount was in a place called Water Hill. And that's like the hood.
Okay.
So they tell you to get there. I had to be there at like 5 a.m. or something. So I get there, and the person who's driving me in my Lyft, or it was an Uber or Lyft, it's like, you sure you want to get out this early? I was like, I think I see some people standing out in the front. Because it just wasn't a place that you would want to be when it's dark outside by yourself. So I found out right away that, because I think part of it might be the Parkland kind of legacy. You couldn't bring anything in the room that they were doing the counting. I think they let you bring your keys if you wanted to take your keys, but you couldn't take your phone. You couldn't take your purse. You couldn't. They made you go through a metal detector. It was serious, and just so you could get it. And if you left the building, you couldn't get back in. So, like, they were very serious.
And your job was to locate each ballot?
Yeah, you were supposed to look at the ballots, because by the time I got there, some of the recount was that the machines had rejected some ballots, or they wouldn't record your choice because you didn't fill the bubble in right, or you did something like you put bubbles in for 3 candidates, and then on the 4th one you circled it. And they'd say, well, that shows, this was their county. That shows the intent was that you were always going to be bubbles. So if you happen to circle for, say, Ralph North, or for, any other Democrat, all of a sudden that was out of bounds. That was not going to be the legal. So we ended up challenging a lot.
Okay.
And so what happened, as far as I know, they're going to have to litigate stuff like, well, gee, what is somebody's intention if they fill in nothing but dots and then, circle one? All right, is that a vote for that person, or is that just, oh, gee, they were standing there just playing around with the ballot?
Well, and did you? In that instance, that's what the conservatives or the Republicans are saying. Discount it, throw that out.
Well, they gave us their rules first, the county, and the Republicans were cool with the rules. So all the Democrats were saying, no, we're not going for that. And it turned out the people that were showing the ballots at my table who worked for the county, they were so used to, they said, we're so used to recounts that we got this down. They put their gloves on. They said, the reason we do this is we might have to do another recount 3 months from now. So they have to keep the ballots as pristine as they can. So they would show you, like, you were looking at a specific candidate, like one at a time. So at that time, it was the person who was running for head of the agriculture department. So, it's Florida, agriculture's big. So that's a big position.
Yeah.
So we're looking, and it was hilarious because the woman who was like saying, she started doing it too fast. She would show us something, and we'd be like, can't see. And finally, she just slowed down a little, and she'd say, you might want to think that little mark there is a vote for your candidacy. And the Republican lawyer would be like, all right, because I would have to say when it was something that looked like a little mark for his candidate. But it turned out we had many more people that were for the Democrats. So it was interesting, especially since the lawyer I worked at the table with was this, I hope it's a rare bird and endangered.
Okay.
A Puerto Rican Trump supporter. He had on his, he had a sweater or a shirt on that had like some kind of like
a Puerto
logo
Rican
that said, Puerto Rico Republican, and
I remember we said before, maybe it's from the paper towel lobby or something. How do you get?
That's all I could think of. I was like, wait a second. How do you even? I was trying not to be like really intrusive, or because you're trying to keep these people on your side so you don't end up erupting. But I was like, I just don't know how you explain this whole thing. And every time he'd talk to me, he'd say stuff like, the previous administration, whenever he was referring to Obama, the previous administration said X, Y, and Z, because we were talking about statehood, and he said, well, you know, there's a problem. I guess he says, I don't know. He claims that every plebiscite they have says that they want to become a state, and yet there's elements that are keeping it from happening. But then when he talked to me later, he said, well, part of those elements are right here in the United States.
Yeah.
They don't want to take on Puerto Rican debt.
Yeah, I mean that's why it's just hard to make that Trump Puerto Rican.
Yeah,
At some point, he wouldn't want anything.
His leader Trump told them,
Yeah.
pay your debt down, and we'll think about it.
Yeah, Karen, we can talk forever, but we'll have to have you back. But we get to talk forever.
Yeah,
But off camera. But thank you so much for coming. And I hope you guys come to 76 North Huron tomorrow night for that that community care conversation about reducing harm with respect to law enforcement and what we can do to better police ourselves or better take care of it. I don't know if we even use the word police.
yeah.
To better enforce the law.
I had a friend when I worked in the New York City Corporation Council.
I gotta go quick too.
She was Chinese, and she said, "Do you ever wonder why you don't see a whole lot of police in Chinatown?" I was like, I don't know why. We take care of it ourselves. I was like, I don't even want to go there.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about vigilantism tomorrow, but we are talking about how to keep our community safe. So I hope you come down to 76 North Huron. Thank you for tuning in, staying late. You can check out all the links that are underneath the show at the Alex Thomas show at the events page here on the Riverside Arts Center. And I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. I probably should have had more.